Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP. Today I get to interview Daniel. So Daniel, welcome man.
Hey.
So Daniel, what is your official type? Can you give us the full type?
All right. So I was type double feminine, Se-Fi, consume, play, sleep, blast.
And when you got your type back, what did you think and how did you feel?
It was really interesting because I was pretty certain that I was on the Ti-Fe axis. Just because like I often find myself like using thinking and trying to develop what I actually personally think about something. Like on the, I mean, I suppose it's like the reasoning side of like a lot of things. Like I find what I personally think about things, but when I realized that it was like a demon TE fascination, like I guess like I just kind of made it come together as like a thing of like I'm just kind of getting everything that everyone else has said, and I'm putting it together into one conclusion.
All right. So since you're now in the FIT axis instead, um, talk about your FI. Like what are the kind of things that you like or dislike, or talk about your values, you know?
This is actually a funny thing for me because I can't actually tell you like I like all of these different things. I just kind of know what I want in the moments. Like I know I like walking. Like I know I like doing that. I also I like thinking. Like I like talking about like different. I guess it would be like the NT aspect of things. I find that really interesting. I guess I also like science. I like math. Um, I like I don't usually think of it that way. Like I don't think of it as like, oh, these are just things that I like.
Yeah.
You know, like I just kind of do. You know.
Right.
So
Okay. Gotcha. What
yeah,
about the TE? So do you have feminine TE, right? So
yep.
do you find yourself like being more flexible with the tribe, like kind of like um, you know, like what's your
Usually, yeah, it's true. Usually, especially at first, like if I just met someone or I just met a group, I will definitely like not try to force them to start doing things the way that I think it should be done. You know, like I first like I kind of get a feel for like who is this? Like who am I talking to? Like I don't even know like how this person thinks. So how am I going to impose how I think onto them if I can't even weigh out how they actually think against the way that I'm thinking? Like I don't really know if I'm right or not. So
right?
I'm just gonna go along with it, and then if I find that like what they do doesn't work, then it's like okay, well I actually I have a bag here. I guess it's my masculine NI or something, and I just pull out from that, and then I start trying to make sure that we all do it the right way, because that is important. But at first, I don't impose that.
Now you said that you have masculine NI. What's
Yep.
your experience with like? Because it's your fourth. It's gonna be your fourth function, so it's gonna be your weakest. But what has your experience been like using that masculine NI? It is masculine, so it's gonna be better than someone if they had it as feminine. So
Yeah.
yeah, what's your experience with it?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one because I actually have this thing. It's like, I don't want to say that I have synesthesia, but I definitely have something where my brain is kind of crosswired and I experience things a little weird. So the way that I experience things weird is that I always see it's kind of like a graph. It's kind of like a graph. Like I see this layer that's like kind of stuck there, and the sensory of things is like perceived as being inside of that layer, and that layer considers like magnetism. So I feel things moving like kind of like if it's my own body, but it's like something else, like separate from me, and I can feel it, and it's like it makes me like overactive with perceiving the like the I guess the crossing of the sensory with the intuition, and it ends up trailing back to my own like perception of myself. So it makes that weird thing. And Dave told me that he's seen a couple people that have stuff like that, and that it makes their in some cases it makes their intuition overactive, even if it's not supposed to be. So I'm a little weird with that, but so in my in my case with masculine and my experience is like I often find myself trying to explain things kind of purely with the intuition, or like I'm punching so hard on the intuition that I forget that that doesn't make sense to someone else. You know, so I end up having people ask me to like give them sensory examples of things all the time, because in my head I'm thinking like, oh, you know, if I solve it out with like the graph thing, like if I make it connect on this thing, then it's gonna connect with them too. But I forget they don't think like that, you know. So, um, yeah. So I just have that weird thing going on with it.
Okay, I think what you were just doing right now is you were using your NF sleep. Um, so let's talk about that, since you were just talking about your your NI, but then you were also using some FI, I guess. It sounds like it was your double masculine sleep that you're using right now. So let's talk about that. How do you experience your double masculine sleep NF? So right now I feel like you've kind of like talking about it already, but let's talk about that even more. So you have double masculine sleep,
All
NF,
right.
and it's
So
NF, and it's also NF. It's
yeah, it's a weird one. It's definitely a weird one. I feel like every time that I use it with someone, like they look at me like they kind of look at me like, what are you doing? Like
yeah.
you're so in touch with your feelings. You're so in touch with the patterns of the things that you've learned through your feelings that like I guess they can't really understand like how it's so like consistent, how it's so consistent, and how I end up like pulling it out. Like it's hard to explain. Like I kind of pull weird. Like I kind of apply it to things you're not supposed to apply it to. I also like I read people very well, and it's a weird thing. Like I've had people tell me that when I look at them in the eyes, it looks like I'm reading them, and I guess it's because like I'm so like fine tuned into the double introverted, double masculine aspect of things that it's like it's as if I'm reading, which is kind of funny to say. Like something about that feels off. Like I feel like there's a better word for that, but it's almost like I'm transcribing like what the information I'm picking up from them translates to for me, as if I'm kind of like predicting like what lessons they're probably learning based on patterns that meant a certain thing to me. But I mean, it could be a different lesson for them. Like it could totally mean a different thing for them. But I guess by nature, I just kind of apply my own things to them. So yeah, that's about it with the sleep.
Double masculine sleep. What about your double feminine play? How do you use your double feminine play?
That's a funny one. Uh, yeah, I suppose the double feminine play kind of shows when I'm just kind of like constantly going to people and asking them like, what do you think about this? As if I don't know what I think about it. It's kind of weird because I do feel like I do end up, you know, figuring out what I think about it. But I suppose even though like my thinking is a feminine function, doesn't mean that it doesn't have any ability to create a sort of foundation that is trusted, I guess, to myself. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. It's kind of weird. Like That's a thing that I feel kind of funny about with the way that the sexuals are explained currently, because like just because your function is feminine doesn't mean that you're going to. It doesn't mean that you're always not gonna know what you think using that function, you know. But
your play is
uh,
also ST. So when I interviewed other people in the past who had like ST as their play, they said it's a lot of dad jokes. So do you relate to that? Like, do you like dad jokes and stuff?
I think they're funny. They're surely funny. I mean, they just are.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, they kind of annoy me. They kind of annoy me. It's kind of like, I guess in my perception, I don't understand how somebody can be stuck in like, and by stuck, I mean like they are so strongly perceiving ST that they're just like, you know, like throwing it around in excess like so easily. I don't know why that bothers me. It annoys me sometimes.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of like an INTJ told me this kind of dad joke. I mean, I don't know if it's funny for you or not. So I was following this like internet marketer. I think his name is Jun Peng or something, and he he wrote a book on like how to make money, pretty much like through marketing. And he went to Disneyland, and he had like his book with him, right? And he said that his joke was, um, so he went to Disneyland where Beauty and the Beast was, the Beauty and the Beast section, Beauty and the Beast, and he said if Gaston read my book, he would have closed Belle, you know. And
Huh.
and then I told that joke to my INTJ friend, right? And then he's because he has ST play. He said to me, he said he said did Belle end up with Beast? I'm like, yeah, she ended up with Beast, and then he was like, yeah, Belle likes it big, you know. It's like, it's like that's like a
Oh,
ST joke, right? Like, talking about the size or something
yeah,
and whatnot.
yeah,
But
yeah.
do you like that kind of joke and stuff, like the dad joke? Is that how you joke too? Like,
You know, I don't know. It's just like, in my experience, my humor has been very SF,
yeah,
not very ST. I guess sometimes it can be, but it's usually leaning towards SF. Like I just kind of make a suggestion about like what something might be, like kind of sexually, I guess, a lot of the time, but other times it's just like funny, like SF, I guess. I don't know. I don't see myself very ST joking, and usually when I do, I'm like, oh hey, like I was able to come up with that.
yeah.
Because I find those a little harder.
What about let's talk about SF then. So you have SF consume. So what is your SF consume like?
Well, it's formed by my feminine SE and my masculine FI. So it can kind of be both on the feminine side and the masculine side at times. It can be either or. I find that I tend to start with it on the feminine side. I guess I'm kind of doing the tester thing with my SE.
Yeah.
And then as soon as my masculine FI like figures out like, oh yeah, it's definitely here, then I just masculine consume. Another thing is that like if I'm trying to consume for myself, a lot of the time I do it over videos. I really hate reading. I really do. I read really slow. And I think it's because I'm trying to respect the information. And I just find it inconvenient because I don't understand what it is. Like a lot of the time, like I read a whole paragraph and I don't get anything. Like I feel like it feels as though like there's a difference between like mimicking those words with the voice in your head, I guess, and like actually like understanding what you're reading. So a lot of the times to get it to the side where I'm just purely understanding what I'm reading, it's too hard unless I'm really interested. And I guess that's the FI thing. Um, and yeah, a lot of the time, because I've seen there's like a split between people where some people, like if they click on a video that they think they're gonna find something that they're looking for, and that link ends up having stuff that they weren't looking for, they're still gonna consume all of that information. And then there's other people that, like if they, as soon as they realize that link doesn't have exactly what they need, they just leave. You know, so I'm one of those people. So if I realize that there's like different kind of info in this thing that I thought had what I needed, I just leave. I just leave. Like I feel like I guess it's the, I don't know, the double masculine sleep or something. Like I'm looking for like I feel like I know where I could find what I need, information wise, and I just like, I don't know, feel like what do you call those? Like I feel like a vulture. Like I'm like I see where my thing is. And I just get it. So
It sounds like it's also NI, like you're looking for specific information, and if that thing that you're consuming doesn't have that specific information, then you just move on because you're trying to put it in that, like,
yeah,
you're trying to put it in that box, right? That
mm,
NI box. So
yeah.
you have feminine SE. So do you have like a bad memory? Do you forget things a lot? Like what is your feminine SE like?
That's a funny one for me. That's a really funny one for me. I don't know if I actually have a bad memory or not because I live around a lot of feminine sensory people. So they actually rely on me for memory stuff. But then like I'm realizing that the kind of stuff that I remember is like dates, numbers. A lot of the time, like I'll remember like what happened to someone else while they were with me, and they don't remember what happened, and they need me to tell them everything that happened because I weirdly remember their life, I guess, and
Yeah.
they don't. So I don't know what to say about that. Like I don't know. But in terms of bad memory moments, in more recent years, I've had a worse memory in the sense that like I used to not have this problem, but now like this is a funny one. I think there's like an OP meme on this, but like if you're trying to get gas for your car and you see the number and then you have to look like a million times before you open the door so you can tell them the right number. I do that shit. Like I do often have issues like that. Like I'm trying to like have the number down in one shot. Um, I don't know what it is. I can't do that anymore, but I used to be able to do that. What I can tell you about that is that I got very affected by a bad trip on weeds, which doesn't make any sense to most people, but it affected me. And I realized that because it happened multiple times. This happened to me multiple times. I didn't learn. I just didn't learn. So um, when it first happened, I just didn't try it again for like a year. But I did notice that after that first time, I wasn't able to do some of the things that I used to be able to do. So I used to be able to write and listen to someone else at the same time. I used to be able to do that, but then after that, I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't do that anymore. I had to finish what I was writing or like finish that sentence and then listen and then go back, or I would still try to do it even then. And what would end up happening is I would notice that I just couldn't. Like it would feel like if I'm hitting a wall in my ability. I'm hitting a wall in my ability to do that, and I'm ending up like writing the wrong word like here and there, and I don't know. And then let me see. So yeah, I guess I don't know. I had a weird switch there, and yeah, eventually, like more times after when I just didn't learn and I kept trying weed again, it got to a point. It got to a point where I didn't feel like I was in my body anymore. I felt like if I was like looking through a screen, and all I would see is my vision, And then like there were like other dimensions that were like not even attached to the vision. And that was my experience of my body. It was very separated. And that's when my memory got really bad. But I can explain that with psychology. So basically, um, the less grounded that you are, the less that you're going to be able to consolidate a memory, because you're not fully absorbing enough information about that present moment to create solid connections. And connections get more solid when you have more like references to that one piece of information. It makes it, that makes them all stick together in your memory. So I don't know if that's related to it. I don't know what to say. I don't know.
That's all good, man.
Yeah.
What about your blast? Your blast last. So what kind of like? So you have NT blast last. So what kind of like problems have you had with your life because you're not using your blast enough? You know.
So um, this is kind of funny. When I first tried typing myself, I thought I was a blast savior. And the reason is because I look forward to creating NT conclusions. I really do. I was a chemistry major in university. You know, like I was very focused on those kind of things. Like, let me see. I don't know, like just growing up, I was always like one of the best in my class in math and science. Um, can't think of too many examples right now, but like I just I don't know how to explain it. I guess my NF sleep just kind of like remembers the conclusion about the feeling that I had about myself, but I can't really connect it to the sensory examples of exactly why I concluded that. But you know, I always grew up feeling like that. So I felt like I was blast, like NT blast savior. Um, but let me see. So now that I know that I'm blast last, I can definitely see a lot of ways that that has manifested in my life. So one of them is a lot of the time I don't update my family on what's going on with me. I just don't. Like I just feel like I just kind of feel like okay, I'll just tell you like as soon as I'm actually connected to you. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like I'll just tell you like the moment that we're face to face and we're connected, and I'm so connected to you that I'm also connected to my NT comfortably, and it could just flow out. You know, but it's hard to just kind of access it like randomly and just like pull it out and throw it at them like every 5 minutes. I don't do that. I end up like telling them things in chunks. That's a thing. So um, another thing is, I'm sure it's pretty obvious in this interview. I have a hard time like delivering what I'm trying to say in a couple sentences. Like I end up kind of, I don't know, I feel like I create this mist of like random, like, I don't know, I'm kind of like a fly within the mist, kind of like a Pac-Man trying to get through the whole maze, but I don't just line it up in one order and just do the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a maze for me. So
That's super obvious.
um,
you're
yeah, so
you're using you're using your play. You're going around in circles trying to get to the point. But you're kind of lost
yeah,
trying to get to the point, and it's fine. It's usually when I interview blast people, they go in circles. They're trying to use play
yeah.
to find that blast, right? And hey, that at least you're definitely blast last. You know, that's because you've been going around in circles, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I had to learn. Even though you might be really fascinated by your demons, you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. You know, like you might like I don't know, like I found it shocking. I honestly found it shocking that I was double demon NT
Yeah.
and single activated on both of them.
Yeah, that's right.
That was weird to me. That was really weird.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. Like, wait a second. Like something is off, or I'm just not understanding something the right way. Because if you would ask anybody around me, that would not make sense. But maybe it just technically does, you know. So
Let's talk about you being a double feminine. So you're a tester and visual, right? So talk about you being a tester. So what do you like to experiment to try out?
okay, so here's a funny thing. I actually feel like the tester has more to do with your DE than anything else. I feel like that because I'm mostly tester when it comes to people.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Like I'm mostly tester when it comes to people. Like when I first meet someone, I'm really quiet. I'm just kind of like observing them, like what is this person about?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about them. Like I can't just like it's a mix between I feel like I don't know what to say to them, and I also feel like it's kind of wrong to just like force them to think the way that I do. You know, like I'm more like, you know, definitely feminine, like definitely like just tell me what you think. Yeah, that could be right. Yeah, definitely. Why not? You know, that's just what you think, and you just have a perspective, and so do I. But you know, that's all it is, just two perspectives. Like I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna be quiet
Yeah.
and passive. But then later on, it changes. It
All right.
changes later on. I get kind of possessive, and I feel like that's the double masculine sleep.
Well, you do have consume first, so it makes sense that you're gonna consume when you first meet someone. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. What about your audio? Your not audio, sorry, your visual. Are you very visual? Like you're good at like picturing things and seeing things like visually, and do you learn by seeing things?
Hmm. That's a funny one to answer for me. Like I don't even know what is visual learning. Like I don't really understand that. I just know that I teach visually. Like when I explain something, I try to create a visual so that you know it connects for you. I don't, but I don't really know if I need that to be done for me to learn it. I kind of feel like I learn it from audio, but I teach it visually. I can also tell you that like I've had out of body experiences where I actually see my body as an energy, and it would look like a yellow energy that's kind of like glitter. It's like static. It's like static. Um, and I feel like that's a very visual experience. So
Yeah, it
um,
that's not like a visual experience.
yeah, and I have like a really strong imagination in the sense that like it can get to the point that like I visualize something and I can get it to this place where like I can actually like grab it and feel it and like experience it. And when I do the out of body thing, that's kind of how I started. Like I get to that point, and then if I like concentrate in that experience enough, and I'm like falling asleep, like I will end up like it literally feels like if I'm like in another body, having another experience in a reality with different rules. Like it's weird.
You are an EP, right? So they said that EPs have like that don't control be bro syndrome, or they don't like being controlled. So talk about that. Like, what's your experience like with like people trying to tell you what to do or trying to control you? You know.
So I'm pretty sure that my mom is an INTJ that's blast first,
Yeah.
blast sleep. So she's really controlling. Like, and like she just, it's not even in a demon state. It's just like all the time. Like she's just always telling you what to do. She's like always just making sure that she puts in her sense of like how it should be done. And like I don't know how to explain it. It's just like it's just a constant blast of like do it like this and like these are the steps. And but she's kind of feminine too, so it's not as bad with her. She's like double feminine as well. But my dad is I'm pretty sure he's a feminine masculine. So he has masculine DE, and I think he's blast third, and it's double masculine. And so his controlling is like a little more dark. you know, like it, and I'm pretty sure the people that, you know, your third animal, you kind of overdo it. So he's like constantly like, you know, like putting in how he thinks you should do it, but he does it in a punchy way. And I don't know. At this point, from OP stuff, I'm kind of reflecting on how that might have shaped our relationship because, like, I've always felt like he was trying to control me. You know, like I always felt like he didn't want me to know what I thought about something because then I might do my own thing and he wouldn't be controlling me. Like in my head, I'm experiencing it that way. And so yeah, I definitely see that with my parents. With other people, I've definitely gotten into fights with people over stuff like that, where I think like they say something that's, I don't know. In my head, I'm thinking it's like they're trying to, I don't know, like make themselves feel better by like saying something bad about me to my face in a sneaky way for me to be okay with them treating me like that. You know, stuff like that. Like I just, I don't know. I have issues with that, and I'm definitely working on it. I can see it very clearly, but it used to hit me really hard. I've lost friendships over that. So
But you are still a double decider, so you can be balanced with self and tribe. So talk about like, you know, being a double decider, being balanced with self, and you know, seeing it from your perspective and the perspective of the tribe, and you can kind of like go back and forth.
yeah, so I like this one a lot actually. I like the idea of double deciding. It's so I don't know, like in my head, in my head, it solves everything because like I don't know, like the biggest problems to me are just like people not understanding each other. So I feel like I don't know, I like I don't know. I could probably even say like if there's something that might help the world, it would just be more double deciding. You know, like it just helps so much with creating your perspective as well. Um, it helps with creating your perspective. Like if you're able to switch between like what you think about something with like what other people are saying about things, and then you know you even get to access like your OI and then access the OE of what you've gotten from other people, and it just like it creates this I don't know, it just it creates a golden egg, I guess. Like it makes the best decision about something. The more balanced out, you know, integrated perspective. And so yeah, I value it a lot.
Did I forget to ask you anything? I feel like I forgot to ask you something. There's a, oh yeah, right, I did. I remember now. So they said that as an EP, your biggest one of your problems in life will be fear. Your fear is gonna be from the NI. So talk about your fear that's coming from like the future. You know, like what is that fear that's coming from the future?
um, I don't really feel like I fear the future, but what I do fear is a reality crisis. I have reality crisis pretty bad. Like a lot of the time, like I don't know, I'll just be in the shower doing my double masculine sleep thing in my head, just kind of like processing by myself. And then sometimes, you know, I go into these philosophical loops, and then there's like certain truths that scare the shit out of me. It scare the shit out of me, and it just kind of spirals by itself. It just kind of spirals by itself, and it ends up creating this echo. It creates this echo of this feeling that's like telling me, I don't know, it's very dramatic. Like I don't know, like it's the one time that my audio is like really, really activated because I'll feel a pop. I'll feel a pop in my ear. And this feeling is like screeching with this like fear that I'm about to disappear. that I'm about to disappear, and it's I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I feel like I end up coming to this truth that nothing exists, and then the pop, and then I'm about to disappear. So it's just a weird thing like that.
That is strange. Uh, let's. I asked you all the questions already. Why don't we talk about the theory that you wanted to discuss when you initially messaged me on Facebook? You said that there's a theory that you wanted to bring on to kind of add on to up. So what is your theory that you wanted to add on to up?
All right, yeah. So I had this interesting thing where I was thinking about like if the modalities are attached to the functions. If the modalities are attached to the functions, and then I started, spiraling down like how would we come to determine that? So then I started out with this idea that the functions might have like multiple sexuals that are determined by different aspects of that function. And then I got to, okay, well, what would make sense to do that? So I was thinking that each function has an input and an output. So the input would be related to like, it's very much like consume, but it's not necessarily done through consume. So for example, masculine thinking input would be about being very stern about like this logic has to be like fully explained or I'm not going to consider it. But if it was feminine, they kind of just go along with it and they're able to see a little bit further down, or maybe not even. I guess the feminine is just okay with okay, I guess the feminine input for thinking would be okay with going down the rabbit hole um, more often without the certainty that this rabbit itself is trustable. So that would be like an example of input. And then the output would be about like creating a conclusion. So if you have a masculine output for the thinking, you're gonna end up wanting to share your thinking conclusions. But somebody with it as feminine, they just kind of not, they don't really know. So for example, Joe Rogan would be like masculine input TE, or I think so. He would be masculine input TE and then feminine output TE. So it would make audio TE. So he's not really sharing I'm the person you should listen to for TE, but he's like, he wants to figure out, TE conclusion by asking somebody that's a good source. And then there would also be in this theory, like you would have each of the sexual combinations in your whole stack. So you would have a double masculine function, you would have a double feminine function, you would have a masculine feminine and a feminine masculine, and that would give you all of the modalities. I mean, we should be able to have all of them. I mean, like, why would we not have one of them? But so I was also thinking that the double feminine one is the one that we kind of gloss over, at least until later, because it's tested. So we just kind of like tiptoe on it at first, and then like maybe later it gets integrated after it's figured its stuff out. So, and then there's also this thing about, because I've heard Dave and Shannon talk about how feminine functions are kind of like another kind of savior function. So I'm thinking that the double masculine function tends to show up really strong. And that kind of ends up being the thing that this person like holds on to a lot. So back to the Joe Rogan example, I think he would be double masculine SE. And that would make him the kind of double masculine that actually is very physical, like, he's been doing fighting and stuff in his earlier 20s, and he's also you know, just in general, like he tends to fight you a lot with the SE, like making sure the SE makes sense. But he, you know, at the same time, he doesn't really know the TE conclusion, you know, and that's why he's always interviewing people. So that's kind of how I apply this thing to try to look at other people. And so, yeah, I mean, is there anything about that that is not clear or you have questions about?
I have to think about it because it's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying, but I have to mull it over and see if that makes sense or not.
Mm.
My last two questions for you, Daniel, is the first one is, what advice can you give to people who are EPs like you that has a blast last? How can they work on improving that blast last?
Ooh.
How can they practice? You know.
Okay, so I think when your blast lasts, at least in my experience, I don't know. I suppose anybody with blast last would have sleep above blast, so um, it helps a lot to be sleep processed before you blast. It helps a lot to try to get to a point, where your OI is very sure of what you think that you know. Like as soon as you get to that point, it'll be easier for you to explain something. And that's because, I think what blast last really means is that it's hard to connect the OI with the DE. Just in general, that's a really weak connection. But it's possible for you to work on the OI by itself and then the DE by itself. So if you make those strong first, then it might be a little easier to connect it. Like you'll have at least in my experience, I found that if I do like a lot, like a heavy sleep processing, I kind of have like a battery of like here's some solid OI, and I just stick it into that machine that I'm using to blast, and I can blast that part fine, like fine. Well, I think so. I don't know, but like better than I usually do. And then after that kind of runs out, I kind of have to go back and like I have to reorganize everything because I don't know, for some reason I find that if I consume new stuff, I kind of have to take apart the entire puzzle of my OI and like redo it, you know? But only when it's freshly redone is when I can explain to them the entire map, So at least that's what I can say based on my experience.
And then my last question for you, Daniel, is I have functions that you don't have. I have NE and SI. So do you have any questions about NE or SI?
Okay, yes, I actually do. I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking about NE. I was like, what exactly is NE consume like? Like, how do you experience that?
I think the best way to describe it is like the kind of stuff that I like to read. So I like personal development or self-help books. It doesn't have to be nonfiction. It could be fiction also. So like one of my favorite NF story is like The Alchemist. I don't know if you've read the book before, but or listen to the audiobooks since you don't like reading. But like yeah, so they talk about like the hero's journey where at the start you get beginner's luck, but then you get comfortable, you think, oh yeah, that's good enough. But there's like a voice inside your head that tells you, hey, you know what, you need to keep going. This is your dream and this is what you need to achieve. So you can't stop here just because you're comfortable and you're doing good already. That's so you push through like that, another long grind of boring, unknown, until you reach another point where you're not like an expert in something. And like, yeah, you've reached a point where you're like really happy, you've achieved success, but there's still that voice inside your head that says, hey, you're not done yet, you got to keep moving. This is the end goal and you got to keep moving. And then you go on that journey, right? And then the final part of the journey is like the worst. It's like it's the most tedious, the most painful. You get beaten up, you almost die. It's like the hardest part. Like that's the final stretch of the race, you could say. And then when you get there, you finally get your treasure, but then you learn the treasure's always been back home. So you get like a full circle almost. So that's kind of like what NF consume is. You know, I like to consume that kind of stuff, like, you know,
Hmm.
a lot of personal development
Interesting.
stuff, you know, and it resonates for me a lot. And I feel like, oh yeah, you know, I'm going through like my own personal journey as well. And, you know, and every time I hit like a roadblock, I just think back to that story and I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? There's going to be like this point where it's boring or it's like, it's really painful or it's like, it's like a desert, like just like you keep looking straight at desert and it's like a never ending sand and you never know if you're going to reach an oasis or not. And, you know, you gotta keep moving anyways. So that's kind of like the NF consume. I don't know if that makes sense though.
I see what you're saying. That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way before,
Yeah.
but that does make a lot of sense. Now it makes me wonder, like, are we really limited to the type of temperament our consume has? Because I don't know, like I don't feel like I don't know, SF consume, the way it sounds to me, it doesn't sound like trying to read about like information.
Your video died. Oh, there we go. It's fine.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, there we go. It doesn't sound to me like trying to read about information. It sounds to me like reading about stuff that's interesting in like a non-information way. But I don't know. Like, do you see? Okay, yours is actually a good example too because it's NF, so that's not really like ST or NT. Like, do you see yourself kind of sometimes actually doing like ST or NT consume?
I consume my NT through play. So I talk to people, you know, like INTJs, for example, they'll blast me, right? And then my play will take it in and then I'll like ask them questions and stuff. So I use my play to NT something, right?
Hmm.
So I don't NT it in my head. You know, for me, in my head, it's all feelings, right? It's all emotions and feelings. So, um, yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, we're all going to be consuming a whole variety of things. It's just there's gonna be certain things that it's gonna be easier for you to consume than others. So for me, like when I'm reading something that's NF, it's for me, it's like I don't know, it's like easy, you know, it's like a breeze, you know. Versus like if I had to consume something that's you know, ST, you know, ST consume is the hardest for me, right? Like, but
Hmm.
you know, SF consume is more like watching like, you know, just like a fun, stupid TV show, you know, like Kardashians or something, or like, like,
Hmm.
a bunch of bros drinking beer, talking shit, you know,
I don't know. It's just
or
so
like
funny. Like I don't relate to that, but I guess I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it can just be applied in a different kind of way depending on, your personal FI. I guess.
yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
the FI definitely plays into it. Everyone has a different taste on what is like, you know, what they prefer, you know. So it is what it is, right? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Daniel. Thanks for doing this interview, man.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Take care, dude.
Bye.